Vegas has 1,000 restaurants. Only one is built on a family's forgotten word.
Well, Monzu is a very archaic word. It's an old Sicilian term for chef, and it comes from the French word monsieur.
He grew up between two countries, never fully at home in either. So he built one out of heat, knives, and routine.
When I was growing up in Italy, I always had to prove myself as the Italian, because they all called me the American. And I was growing up here, I had to prove myself as American, because they always called me the Italian.
His kitchen became the borderland. Every plate, a way to prove he belongs somewhere.
I've made a lot of mistakes in life, and I have a hard time expressing myself sometimes and showing love sometimes. But I've always been able to show love through food.
No speeches, no slogans, just a man feeding strangers like their family, because that's the only language he ever learned. You are watching the Vegas Voices podcast.
One of the things that I love about doing this podcast is going down to the heart of Vegas. We're literally in the heart of Spring Valley by Flamingo and Jones, right?
It's funny you say the heart of it. When we moved here, this was the absolute outskirts of town.
I know.
After Rainbow, there was no houses, nothing. So we were right on the edge. So it's been such a long time.
I know. So we're at what used to be Nora's, from the context that we've seen. And Nora's is still a staple of Las Vegas Italian cuisine. In front of me, I have Chef Giovanni Mauro, and we are in this new place called Monzu. And the first curiosity is, people don't know certain words, so I don't know what Monzu means. Where does that word?
Well, Monzu is a very archaic word, so I'm not surprised that you don't know it.
Yeah.
A lot of people even say, well, it sounds Asian. It doesn't even sound Italian. It's an old Sicilian term for chef.
Okay.
And it comes from the French word monsieur. So where does that history come from? During the French Revolution, where nobility was getting their heads cut off, a lot of chefs were found without a job.
Wow.
Because the nobility was all getting killed off, right? With southern Italy at the time was a kingdom of two Sicilies, and it was very prosperous. So all these chefs started migrating down to southern Italy to find work with noble families in southern Italy. And they all wanted it to be called Monsieur, but they couldn't pronounce Monsieur. So Monsieur became Monzu. And then from Monzu, that became synonymous with head of kitchen or chef. So it developed into being, if you call someone a Monzu, he was a chef. And I wanted to revive the term that has been, it's been 100 years since it's really been used regularly, but hopefully we'll bring it back. Who knows?
That's a pretty cool start. So your story starts with very deep Sicilian roots.
Yeah.
What do you remember most vividly growing in between two worlds, Sicily and America?
Well, the hardest part is never feeling like you had a home, really. And so I think that this has driven my cooking and my philosophy and how I do things, because when I was growing up in Italy, I always had to prove myself as the Italian, because they all called me the American. And I was growing up here, I had to prove myself as American, because they always called me the Italian. So we've never felt like I've really belonged in any country. I've kind of been straddling both. But that's okay, because it gave me a much broader international view on the world. And that perspective has left me very blessed, where I have, if it's okay to toot my own horn, I have an innate ability to see the common threads and cultures and see what ties us together versus the differences. And I find that those differences are usually perceived and a matter of perspective. We have so much that ties us together, and it's so different than how the world speaks right now. And for that reason, even though it was very difficult, because I never felt like, as a kid, you're always feeling like, that was very difficult. Where I am now, I feel very blessed that I had that perspective, because many minds are very sheltered from a global view, and that didn't happen with me because of my particular unique situation.
Very apropos for the times.
Yeah, I find that, you know, like a lot of military friends whose parents have had to travel throughout the world have the same kind of perspective, and people that go back and forth. So it's a very cool perspective that I have.
I cheer to that.
Okay, let's cheers. Woohoo! I like this guy already. This is awesome.
What are we drinking here?
This is Regaliani. This is, of course, it's a Sicilian wine.
Okay.
Of course. So this is actually a winery very close to my dad's hometown. Tasca dal Merida is the family. They're an ancient family that I believe moved into Sicily in the 1500s. Spanish bourbon is their noble lineage. And I don't know, they do things, and they are as passionate at curating Sicilian culture as I am, and so I find a big camaraderie, and they like to show off the best of what Sicily has to offer.
I hear a little bit of New York in your accent, that you.
Never. And
But
funny.
it's just Italian American accent type.
It's funny because a lot of people say that,
Yes.
and I've never lived in New York City. I wouldn't mind living there, but I never have. I've never had the opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You know, I like to go back. You mentioned that this place used to be Nora's, and I don't know if you know the backstory of that.
No, let's go to that. I'd love to know.
So Nora's my mother.
Okay.
So we opened up here in '91
Okay.
with a little tiny kitchen in the middle, with my mom cooking and my dad at the register. I was still in California for about a year, finishing up college, and then moved here, and it started expanding. You know, we expanded one way, then we expanded the other way, and Nora's kept on building and building and building to the point where they had to move to a bigger building.
Okay.
So they bought a piece of land and built the building, and have done incredibly well over there. But meanwhile, we have this location. And I said, well, so what are we going to do?
So it stays in it all stays in the family.
Right. And I said, well, I'll tell you. I spoke to my dad and my mom. I said, I'll take it and do something. If I don't, someone else is going to take it and do an Italian restaurant. It's going to confuse the public. I'll do something Italian and something a little different. They love the idea. At the point of staying here, it was very sentimental, because all three of us brothers met our wives here. We all had all of our kids' baptisms, all of our, wedding rehearsals, and all of the holidays, and just on and on. It's been 30 years of memory, and we just couldn't let it go. We had to do something with the building. And I'm a sentimental sap like that.
I totally get that, and I love doing this podcast because of that. That's why it's called the Vegas Voices, because we find the voices that are building the city. I know that Nora's has been a staple of the city, but I never knew
The backstory.
Right? You go and eat, and Nora's is great, and this and that, and you see the family pictures and blah, 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 but you never really get to know.
Yeah. I mean, the line is still the same, the hoods. So I walk here and I still visualize my mother cooking. I still see my dad pacing back and forth, and we have a bench, and my dad was a avid smoker. And my mother's in Sicily, by the way. I can't wait for her to come back so we can start cooking some stuff together. But my dad was just, smoking was a thing with that generation. Everybody did it.
I remember.
So there was a bench up there, and I said, Pa, so how many cigarettes do you think you've smoked on this bench? We've been here a long time. He looked up, and he actually he did the math, and he said, about 200,000 over the years. And I did the math because it was like he did a pack a day, 7 days a week, 52 a year, times 20 years, and or whatever it was, and he did the math, 200,000 cigarettes. I'm like, my gosh, that puts it in perspective how long we've been in this location.
That's such a cool story, and just brings so much humanity to it. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty of being a chef and you.
Okay, I need another sip before we do that.
Let's do it. Let's go. It's great wine, by the way.
Thank you. I'm glad you like it.
Thank you.
It's it's fresh. It's approachable. It's every day. The price point is perfect for everyday wine. And it appeals to all kinds of different palates. I've never met someone that says, oh, I don't like that wine. It's very approachable and very good in it.
Yeah, it's very much in the middle. I'm not an expert on wines, but it gives me that it's
middle of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a lot of success with this. And, a lot of people would say, well, is it your house wine? I have a hard time saying house wine because usually house wine it implies there's something not very good wine.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time calling it that. But this is, I always call it our family go-to or chef's favorite because this is what we drink. This is what we drink.
This
is what when my mother and I drink at home. This is, on Sundays at home, this is the wine that I serve. And I want people to experience that beauty in this wine. I think life is way too short to have things that are less than desirable. A couple extra dollars and you have something nice. We're in this life to enjoy, right? I don't think that shorting yourself, especially on food and drink, is a wise choice.
That's a joie de vivre.
That's right.
Very, very French. Yeah. Very good. So you've spoken about respect for ingredients. That's a philosophy of yours. Where did that belief come from?
My dad, 100%.
I thought you were going to say your mom.
Yeah. No, my mom, although she has a keen respect for ingredients, my mom drove technique in me. My mother was about procedure and I want to say feeling the food. Like one of the greatest things she ever said to me is, as you cook, you have to taste the food in your mind. So as you're adding salt, you got to taste it in your mind. How much salt am I putting and how is it going to taste? I'm putting this much butter. How is it going to taste? And so that's what she was about. My dad grew up on a farm. He's a farmer. And to him, ingredients and quality of product was absolutely everything. He would rather have a perfect tomato by itself on a plate, didn't care, but it was perfect, than all the different things that you can make with him. And from him, I inherited the love of simplicity. And something that spoke to me that a friend of mine said is that simplicity is an art form. It's easy to make things complicated. Very easy. To keep things simple at their best and shining through, that takes effort. And it takes a lot of thoughtfulness and a lot of awareness to be able to do that properly. Because otherwise, you're left with something that is not so expressive. And so, yeah, love of ingredients, definitely my dad. Love of technique and process and tradition, definitely. Well, my mom and my dad on tradition, but that's the balance.
That's the beautiful balance.
Yeah.
Wow. So when did you realize food wasn't just a profession? When did you realize it was actually a calling for you?
Well, the calling happened first.
Okay.
I didn't know that I was ever going to go into it professionally. I wanted to, my first aspiration was actually to be an opera singer. Opera singer.
Oh, wow.
Believe it or not, I did that until I was 32, pursuing a career in that. Didn't work out for me.
You still sing once in a while?
Once in a while. If I have enough wine, I sing.
Yeah, you
come up and sing. Yeah, good. I married a musician. My wife was a jazz singer, so I love that part of our relationship. And when she sings here, every once in a while, I'll go up and I do a tune or two. But I knew it was going to be one or the other. Food has just always been a calling, whether I would cook with friend. And, someone said to me once, okay, so why cooking? Like, what is it that made you, like, why is it your thing? And I'm a person that I've made a lot of mistakes in life. I've done wrong things. As they say, I'm a sinner, just like everybody else. And I have a hard time expressing myself sometimes, and showing love sometimes. But I've always been able to show love through food. Always, 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 always. That is something that has never changed my entire life, and it's something that that is the reason why I do what I do. It's because unmistakably, I'm always showing love through food, always. And that's that's the language I want to speak. And I sometimes can't do it through words. I sometimes don't do it through action and behavior, but I always do it through food. So, see what happens when they give me a little wine? I just start going. Ooh.
I'm loving this one. So in that vein, tell me a little bit about your schooling. How much was it here? How much did you go to chef school? Did
No
you go
chef
somewhere?
school, no formal
Just
training, except for books. I like to read books. So, I'm an 80s baby, and so we grew up in a time where television was just like, it was the thing. That's where we got all of our information. And so a lot of stuff I learned just by watching cooking shows. And at the time, cooking shows were not about theater. They were actually about cooking. And I learned and through that I became just so intrigued by the techniques and how one little thing you could change and the whole dish is different. And I did things by route because my mother taught me, my aunt taught me, my dad taught me, all my aunts and uncles. I mean, we're very food centric. Like, that's what we do. But then because of those programs, I started asking the why. Why does it make a difference? And so through reading, and so all of that learning came self-motivated. It didn't come through an institution. And I'm so grateful I did that. And I'll tell you why.
I mean, you had a great laboratory here. So.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. So the reason is because as cooking schools are amazing. The French school is amazing how they've systemized culinary arts. But the reality of it is that a lot of times the young chefs will go through that program and they get conformed into a system and they forget techniques that are perfectly valid in the cultures that don't translate into the school. And so there's a conformity, and I am glad I didn't go that route, because I was able to preserve the traditions and the techniques that I know are true, and I, because of asking the question why, I can defend them. Why you do it this way? It's not because that's the way my grandfather did it. I am able to express the why. So, little different perspectives. No formal training. My mother, my aunt, and the primary is my father's sister, my aunt in Sicily, my grandmother, both my grandparents, both my grandmothers, and then my grandfather on my dad's side of my father, the farming and the love for those ingredients and the freshness and all that.
Yeah. So what I'm listening a little bit in between the lines here is that, cooking has to be a science, but it's also an art. And you gotta keep...
It has to be.
Part of both.
Yeah, it has to be an art because, again, it's an expression of an emotion.
Wow.
So something that happens often in my house, my kids and my wife make fun of me all the time. If I'm angry, I end up, for some reason something happens and I'm cooking, my food is always too salty. It's always too salty. And they taste the food and they're like, are you angry? What's going on? And I'm like, yes, darn it, again? Yes, I'm thinking of this, and this, and I don't know why I take it out with salt. And my hand is always heavy with salt. So I've had to really work on that, because it's like, okay, you're in a bad mood and you're angry, don't oversalt. Take it easy on the salt.
I love that there's always a little bomb or a little phrase that the person says that's very much there. And we're going to take this one from this podcast. Is going to be, food is an expression of emotion. Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Of course, 100%. And I just grew up in a reality that when we sat at the table and we had guests over, the quality of the food reflected the respect we had for the person dining with us. So,
it's a form of showing respect.
Exactly.
Wow.
So if the food is not good, then what respect do you have for the person sitting at your dining room table? Like, you go out of your way to make sure that the food is impeccable. I mean, this is what I tell people here at the restaurant all the time. Every guest that walks through the building is a blessing. I mean, can you imagine someone says, okay, let me go eat there? I mean, think about how intimate food is. It's something that we put in our bodies.
Yes.
And you're trusting me to do it. I take that very seriously. Like, it's an honor to have people come through the door. I don't understand the chefs that don't see it, that see it backwards. That makes zero sense to me. Because you're not taking a chance on the guest. The guest is taking a chance on you. It's up to you to walk the walk and do the right thing. And yeah, it's a different reality, I think. It's a different way of looking at it.
So every guest is a blessing.
Always. You know, there's this cool tradition that happens in Italy where when we drop the pasta, right? And the water's boiling, the water's salted, you drop the pasta. And then it takes, depending on the shape and the size, or whether it's fresh or dry or semi-dry, it takes different time for the pasta to be the perfect consistency that everybody likes.
Okay.
And there's a side note is that everybody thinks that a pasta should be al dente, and that's the way it should be. No, it's the way people like it. They like pasta that is soft and way overcooked, and that's what they like. They like it undercooked, that's what they like. It's about a preference. But we would always take a little bit of the pasta out of the water after set minutes, and we would always give it to the eldest in the room. And that person decided what the right cooking temperature would be. Another sign of great respect for that elder, so that if the elder liked it a little raw, everybody was eating on the raw side. If he or she liked it on the well done side, we would all be eating mushy pasta. But that's what it was for everybody.
The little things that make such a big difference.
Yeah.
So family business can be beautiful and challenging. What have been the most important lessons in running a business with the people you love?
Man, that's a heavy question. Yeah, wow.
Welcome to the Vegas Voices podcast.
It's a heavy question. So the challenges, of course, is time. I think anybody that has a family business, family restaurant business, will tell you that time for the families is problematic sometimes. The learning is, I finally said to everybody, I've been in this industry a long time. I'm putting my foot down. I'm taking Sundays off and spending it with my wife and kids. End of story. If there's a fire, call the fire department. If someone's creating trouble, call the police. Don't need to call me. There's no reason for it. And I'm really enjoying that time. I wish I would have done that sooner. But I always felt guilty. I'm asking everybody to work and I'm not going to work. I felt guilty taking those days off.
Yeah.
You know, so, but I realized that with a family business, you have to we live in such a very chaotic world, and our time is always, I don't feel like it used to be that way. Maybe I'm imagining things, but I felt like there was a rhythm to life that was a little more conducive to family events. Like even like when we opened up Nora's, we could close on Sundays and it would be okay in this town. Now you can't close on Sundays, or you can't. It's just very difficult because the guests have so many choices, and if you're closed, guess what? They'll go somewhere else and it's done. Back when we were a smaller town and smaller options, we're closed on Sunday. Nora's is closed on Sunday. Let's go on Wednesday. Let's go on Thursday. They would just switch the day. That's no longer the case.
No.
So that's a challenge. That's been a challenge, but that was the biggest learning for me. And I want to say, though, the other side of it is that there's blessing in having the kids here. And a lot of, so my wife grew up in Southern California, and she's, her philosophy on work and kids is very different than mine. Mine is more Sicilian. I believe in apprenticeship and involving your kids and
In what you do.
in what I do. And I think we're missing a lot of that. I don't understand segregating generations. I don't think it fosters a healthy culture, a healthy community is the word I was
like
looking for.
that before that.
Always been like that.
For generations on the family crap.
Exactly. And even if they don't end up in the restaurant business, fine. But what I've noticed is that my kids have the ability to interact with strangers because they're at the door, they're saying hello to people. So they have that and they carry it on. And then they also see their father in a different setting. And that setting is different than what they see at home. So you get a much more rounded of who that person is. And I know that that's the way it was for me growing up and seeing my parents in the family business. You know, obviously, we all, when we're at home in the comfort of our home, our guards are let down, but we have to know how to which parts of our personality should shine through at which moment. And so they're able to learn that. Whereas instead of having to learn it on their own, they're able to see the way we interact with people and to see what it's appropriate in a professional setting and what is not. I think that's the blessing of having a family business.
Beautiful. So let's go and dive deep into how things are done here. You're known for your obsession with natural leaven dough, no commercial yeast. And for people who, like me, who don't live in this world, what makes that process so special?
Okay, so I have noticed that this was 20-something years ago. I noticed that there was a continuing reality that bread especially was causing people health issues. Like they were eating it and they weren't feeling well. It would make them sluggish. It would mess up the digestive system.
They call it gluten these days, right?
Gluten intolerance, right?
Yes.
Which is different. Well, sorry, gluten sensitivity, which is different than gluten intolerance.
I mean, that came up a few years ago before we didn't even know what, or it wasn't labeled.
Oh yeah, so that, yeah, we're almost there. So gluten intolerance is experienced by celiacs. What that means is that there's an enzyme that celiacs lack to break down the gluten. What is gluten? I always ask people, you're sensitive to gluten, what is it? You can't eat it, what is it? You should know, right? So gluten is really two vegetable protein strands that one's shaped like a 7, the other one's shaped like a spiral. And when you add water and energy, which is mixing, then those two intertwine and they become like a netting. So that's what gluten is this netting. So people that have celiac cannot process one of those proteins. Both proteins are found in wheat. Rice and corn, for instance, only have one of the protein strands, which people can digest easily. That's why someone who's a celiac can eat rice, can eat corn, but can't eat wheat.
Okay.
So that's valid. Gluten sensitivity is something that 20 years ago just went, and so I asked the question, why? What is it? Why are people getting sick? So, and then I really thought about it. So, well, we have these strands of wheat that produce very high gluten, and we put a bunch of yeast, and the yeast that we use is something that we conjured up in a lab, and we want it to go fast, so we add a bunch of yeast. We don't let the gluten develop enough or expand enough or mature enough is the word I was looking for. And as the commercial yeast usage went up, then intolerance or sensitivity went up alongside. And so what I said is, let's go back to how my grandparents and great-grandparents were making bread.
Right, because we've been eating breads for thousands of years.
Thousands and thousands of years.
This hasn't shown up.
So what is it? Why, so So that's what I started doing, and my objective was, okay, no yeast that was made up in the lab. I wanted to absolutely make sure that the yeast that we used natural sourdough. So what did I do? Italy, Bakery Andiana Ischia. Reportedly, they had a mother dough that was over 300 years old. So I asked for a little bit, put it in my pocket, brought it over. This happened like 23 years ago. I started propagating it. And I loved the flavor and it was doing great. I was missing a little acidity. So then I said, okay, so if I didn't have this bakery, what would I do? And I did the research. I said, okay, you make your own mother. So I contacted a friend of mine who owns a farm, Quail Hollow, up in Logandale. A wonderful farm, by the way. And I said, Laura, what do you have that's organic fruit so I could... She said, it's the season for apricots. I have beautiful apricots. I said, bring them over. And I made a mother using apricots. And that turned out to be too acidic. And so then I started mixing the two. And when I combined the two, it gave me the bread that I have today. And I've had this starter now for, 22 years.
Okay.
Feeding it every day and using it every day. And what I've noticed is that me personally, it's much easier to digest. And so then I started asking people that are gluten sensitive, hey, try my bread, see what it does. Have a loaf, take it home, try it. Without fail, I can eat it. Same people that have gluten sensitivity, they say, I go to Europe and it doesn't mess up my stomach. Why? We treat bread differently here. And so doing it correctly, fermenting it a long time, letting it mature so that the gluten relaxes enough, then it's much easier for us to digest. And if we don't do that, then we're left with problems. And there's plenty of people that can handle it.
Right.
You've heard people that have iron stomachs, no matter what they eat,
Yes.
they're fine. I'm not one of those guys. I need my food to be wholesome and well done, otherwise I suffer.
That was a great explanation. So do you provide this dough in your pizzas?
Pizza and bread.
Bread? Pizza and bread. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very proud of it, obviously.
This brings us to my next question, which is that you bring a lot of science, but also soul into your food. How do you merge the precision and the intuition in the cooking?
Well, I think the science comes in planning. So if I'm planning a dish, I do the okay, what am I gonna do technically? How am I gonna kind of have a playbook. But then when I go in and actually start making it, I usually have someone next to me to just take notes. But then I abandon everything I've written down. And I just go. So there's that pre-planning gives me a direction, but then I've got to feel it. And I'll adjust and I'll say, we got to add more salt. We need to add this bit. Oh, this would go great. Let's put this in because as I'm doing it and feeling it, then it's a different perspective. And I've always been that way. I envy the people that could sit in the boardroom and plan out stuff that ends up getting executed flawlessly. I can't do that. I have to plan it and then I have to feel it.
It's kind of your mom's.
And then I have to know that it's going to be good. And if it's not good, I scratch the whole thing and start all over again. That's how I balance it. I don't think that it's good just to say, oh, I'm a creative type and I just go in and do it. You have to have it has to be a balance. So that's my process. That's the way I do it.
Very cool. What's the dish that best represents you as a chef? If you could tell only one that tells your story.
Well, it's a dish that I don't have on the menu because it requires an ingredient that is very seldomly produced here in the United States. There's a couple of farms in Louisiana that do it. There used to be farms in California and they don't do it anymore, but it's called the serpentine squash. It's very long and it matures in the summer. It's a beautiful dish that combines technique and ingredients. It's simple, delicious, comforting, and it appeals to everybody I've ever served it to, loves it. I think that would probably be my most favorite.
Okay.
Thing.
Does it come in a seasonal menu or just for special?
If I could ever find it
Okay.
during the summer, I'll put it on the menu. But so far, I had actually Laura up at Quail Hollow one day, planted them and produced them, but then it produced so much and she couldn't sell it because no one knew what it was, so she stopped producing it, and I didn't have the volume to sell all of it. So, but who knows? Someday maybe I'll bring it back.
Very cool. All right, let's go. We have a rapid fire round of questions.
Oh boy, I'm not good. I have to tell you, I'm not good at those.
Let's see what we can get.
Because I'm very verbose, so as you, I might go off on tangents.
It's all good.
All right, let's go.
That's the point of the podcast. So, your favorite ingredient to cook with right now?
Oh, olive oil. Easy.
Okay. Any particular one? Where do you source it from?
It just has to be good. There's great products in California. There's great products in, Italy, of course, France, Turkey, Greece, Spain. Just olive oil.
So, okay.
No.
A dish you'll never take off the menu.
Holy moly. A dish I'll never take off the menu. Pizzare and fazol. It's a dish that is not even Sicilian. It's from Piacenza. And they look like little tiny gnocchi that are made from breadcrumbs. And they're served with balota beans and sausage. It's a very thick and comforting. And
is it like a soup or like?
No, it's more like a pasta, or the hearty pasta. Yeah. And it's absolutely phenomenal. And not a lot of people know about it, so it doesn't sell. And if anybody will look at my numbers of what things that sell, they will go there and go, take that off the menu. I'm not taking it off the menu. It's too delicious. And I love this dish so much that I'm keeping it on.
That's what I'm having this Sunday. I'm coming with my wife. So.
Pizzare and fazol.
Pizzare and fazol. Very good. Favorite Sicilian comfort food?
Oh, that soup I told you about.
Okay.
100%. But there's so many things in Sicilian cooking that are so good. Like, you know what's a really cool dish? And this goes all the way. So the Arabs were in Sicily for a long time.
Well,
so this goes back all the way to the 1000. But it's a spaghetti that's made with sardines, wild fennel, saffron, currants, and pine nuts. And it is phenomenal. And we make it for St. Joseph's Day. We serve it with toasted breadcrumbs. That is a dish that is so comforting and so delicious. But it goes on and on. They do this. You ever hear of affogato? Right? Most people know it as the ice cream with the coffee. So affogato means to drown.
Okay.
So we get the ice cream and we drown it with coffee. But you can drown any food item with any liquid.
Okay.
Right? Doesn't just have to be a dessert. They do this dish called cavolfiore, which is cauliflower, affogato. And they drown it in red wine when they cook it. And it is one of my favorite things in the world. It's so delicious. I could go on and on.
So many things, and you should bring all these things from Sicily.
I told a colleague of mine 2-3 days ago. I said, you know what? Because I'm working on the fall and then winter menu. It's like I need 14 restaurants because I have so many things that I want to do, but then the menu gets too big and I can't execute it. So, man, there's just so many choices. So many choices.
You want to become the Cheesecake Factory?
No, that's too much.
Oh, man. If you could share a meal with any chef, living or gone, who would it be?
Living or gone? Oh, I think Julia Childs.
Okay.
Yeah. You know why? Because she's one of those that really understood things that bridged us together, cultures that bridged us together. She always asked the why. I mean, there's a lot of chefs I'd love to break bread with, right? Lydia Bastianich is one, and I've met her a couple of times, but she's just a phenomenal chef. And I know he kind of had a falling in the public's eye, but I still admire and many ways respect Mario Batali. I think he's a spectacular chef. Thomas Keller is just he's Thomas Keller. What am I going to say? He's, I just on and on. But can you imagine the courage of Julia Childs I think she was in her 50s when she started the cooking show. She said, you know what I want to do? I'm going to teach people how to cook on camera. And just start doing, how do you even come up with that? And to convince the networks to say, okay, let's do that. And she was a pioneer in all of that. All of that.
Sometimes people late in their 50s, they find their calling, and
yeah, it's true.
They use all their experience and all their life.
I just admire her courage and her grit, and I admire her absolute passion for quality and for tradition. And she was just, I would love to sit down and just have a long conversation with her.
Very cool. So one thing that you have learned from your guests over the years?
Oh, one single thing, huh? I don't know that I can come up with something like that.
Every guest is a blessing.
Every guest is a blessing. I don't, so here's what I don't want to say that I've learned from the guest, but here's one thing that I've learned on how to approach the guest, especially when it comes to complaints. I've learned that there's a percentage of truth in every negative comment. And it's up to us to decipher how much of that truth is true and how much is their perspective. And sometimes it's 1%. There's a percentage of truth. They're so off base, but they've got that one little thing that I could take from. And sometimes they're 100% right. So I always try to just decipher where we land and how I can use those comments to better the organization, better myself, and better the team. So yeah, that's probably the hardest question.
Very cool, and that brings me that brings me more to your team building. When we researched you, we found that you were a great leader. So
are you sure about that?
What does leadership mean to you now, as someone who's seen trends, successes, and setbacks?
It's interesting you say that. I just had a meeting up right before you came over about prospective team members that are going to join our team, and my wife pointed out. She said, what your greatest asset is that you can see the potential in people and you can help mentor them. And I found that a very interesting comment, because that's also what I enjoy the most. It's also what hurts the most sometimes, because I see potential in people and I can give them direction and give them suggestions. But at the end of the day, if they don't want to improve, if they don't want to go there, they're not going to, right? It's up to them. And I've always believed in the philosophy of, there's two different, sayings that just came to mind. Like, if you teach a person to fish, feed them for a lifetime. If you give them a fish, you just feed them once. Mm-hmm. That was one of them. The other one is treat people as they are, and that's how they'll stay. Treat people how you want them to be, and that's who they'll become. And those are nice, but the person has to be willing to learn how to fish, or the person has to be willing to transform and change into that person. It's not up to me. And so, even though I enjoy that a lot, it sometimes is a hurtful experience, because you invest in the person. And if that person doesn't want to do it, then you're banging your head against the wall. And I take it as a reflection of me and how I failed as a leader, because I wasn't able to inspire them, and I wasn't able to drive them and motivate them. And but that's that's the way it is. At the end of the day, it's people's choice on what they want to do.
That's true. I noticed you showed us around the prep kitchen just before the podcast, and I noticed a really good vibe when you went in there, sometimes I've seen whenever I've worked in kitchens many years ago, and like whenever the chef comes in, there's this tightness going on. Nothing. Everybody was super chill,
At ease.
respectful, at ease, doing their thing, being respected, and being.
Yeah, it's tough to foster that because depending on our background and upbringing, authority, we were taught to fear them or to look at them as enemies, and we've never had that. One of the earliest memories, driving in a car. My dad's driving. I'm in my mother's lap. No seatbelts at the time. You remember those days, right?
I still live those days.
But there was a police officer right next to us, and my mother got really tense, and she said, "Behave! Don't move." And my dad said, "What are you doing? Why are you teaching them to fear?" And he tapped me on the shoulder and he said, "Wave to the officer." And the officer looked at me and waved back. And that's my first memory of authority. They're not someone we should fear. They're someone that we understand are part of the community and part of the makeup of the community. And I try to do that. Now, look, naturally there's always fear, and and I recognize that, and I need to be careful not to. Sometimes you say half a word and it weighs on them like a ton of bricks. And I don't like making that mistake. I don't like making that mistake.
I can tell that, and I can see it in your culture. So looking ahead, what's next for Monzu, for Old School, or for you, Chef Gio?
Well, I think that even though I've been in this town a long time, I feel like there's a lot of people that don't know me and don't know who I am. I've received a lot of accolades and a lot of press, and I think I'm fairly well known amongst my colleagues. But if there's one thing that I like to be known for is my passion and my, I want to say my expertise in Italian food throughout the peninsula, not only Sicilian. And really, I want Monzu and I want my kitchen to be an authority on what Italian food is, and we could be a pillar in the community of saying, okay, if you want to know what Italian food is, this is the chef and this is the kitchen that you need to experience. And so that's my goal, along with becoming wildly successful as a business. So obviously that's part of it too. And then at that point, we'll know what to do next.
I hope we can help you with that, definitely. And when people dine at your restaurant, what do you hope they feel beyond the flavor?
Hospitality.
Okay.
Hospitality. Big, open arms, welcome. Thank you for being here. That's my absolute want and desire. I want people to come in and feel like they're in a small village in the countryside of, any region in Italy. I was going to say Sicily or Tuscany. It doesn't matter where you are. But I think we come, again, from a culture of big, open arm hospitality. And that's what I want everybody to feel. And I will say, that goes with everybody. I don't ever want there to be... I want people to understand that when they walk through my doors, they are welcome no matter where life has brought them from. What experiences, what background, what philosophies, I don't care. I'm in the world to show love through food. You come in, I'm going to feed you. That's just the way I do it. And I hope that every single guest can feel that.
And with emotion.
Exactly. We may not be perfect. Look, nobody's perfect. No organization is perfect. But he asked me what my want was and what my desire. That's what I want.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And finally, if you could speak to your younger self, the kid learning to stretch dough, what would you tell him about success?
Besides don't be an idiot?
Aren't we all, man? That's part of the human experience.
I use that phrase a lot.
Oh my God.
I think my younger self, I would advise that small deposits is better than consistent small deposits in anything, whether it's in a relationship, in a bank account, in a project, in development, whatever it is. As small, consistent deposits are infinitely better than trying to gather and do large chunks at once. It rarely works out trying to do it large chunks at once. That's my advice to my younger self.
Thank you, Chef Gio. And tell us, this is where you get to promote yourself. Where can people find you? Where do you want them to go?
Oh, this is the elevator spiel, I call it.
Where you want to call it.
So we're out.
Say their socials or whatever.
Yeah, we're on the corner of Flamingo and Jones. We're just on the outside of what is now Chinatown. I like to call it Asia Town because there's so many different cultures represented up and down Spring Mountain. But we're on Flamingo and Jones. I've been in this building now for 34 years, since 91. And love to have you. Love to welcome you with open arms. And thank you. This has been really, really awesome. Like,
you're welcome.
Truly was really able to express what's in my heart. I like that.
Thank you, Chef. Thank you for being our guest, boy.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.